So both Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid weighed in on the Harrison Butker situation as well as the Rashee Rice situation, and honestly, this is how everyone should treat situations like this. So I'll share what was said in this video as well as cover practice highlights, those who didn't show up, and someone who was already quote-unquote injured. But first, how about those? All right, today was day 3 of the first round of phase 3 of organized team activities for the Chiefs. Local media got some time to watch a bit of practice, and 3 people spoke to the media as well, with those being head coach Andy Reid, QB1 Patrick Mahomes, and cornerback Trent McDuffie. One of the first things worth mentioning from the jump here is that this is still voluntary, meaning players are not required to be here in Kansas City working. And that's why some of the vets were missing today, including Joe Toney, who is dealing with that pec injury. I would assume / hope, pray, fast, whatever descriptor you want to use, that Joe Toney is going to be good to go for this season. But he was noticeably not there, as was running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire, defensive tackle Chris Jones, tight end Travis Kelce, and a bit of a surprise to me, wide receiver Kadarius Toney as well. Charles Omenihu and Derek Nottie, per Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest, were there, but observing. And I don't know why Derek Nottie wasn't practicing. Maybe he's dealing with some sort of a minor injury, but I don't recall any injury this offseason from him, so hopefully it's pretty minor. We all know, though, that Charles Omenihu is recovering from having ACL surgery roughly 3 months ago. Anyway, out of all these guys that didn't show up, I'm most surprised that Kadarius Toney was the one not out there, given his underwhelming season last year, and also given the fact that I don't have him as a 100% roster lock at the moment. I have him most likely making the 53-man roster, but even though all $2.5 million of his cap hit this season is also dead money if you have to cut him, which means you lose all $2.5 million, I still think Toney is going to have to earn a spot on the roster. After all, he didn't play half the season last year. He was on the injury report, then said he wasn't injured and was a healthy scratch in the Super Bowl. You know the deal. I just think that it would have been nice to see Toney out there. Of course, the team believes in him, with Andy Reid, Brett Veach, and everyone else saying as much when asked about him publicly, but in an ideal world, he's out there working with the team right now. He was spotted in ATL yesterday buying a new motorcycle, though, so maybe, just maybe, he's riding to Kansas City from Atlanta and just running a bit behind. Now, outside of those players, basically everybody else was out there. You look at the wide receiver room, you had guys like Justyn Ross and Nico Remigio putting in work. They are fighting for roster spots. Justin Watson was out there. Skyy has never skipped leg day ever in his life, more as well, and the newly added Hollywood Brown were among those running drills and routes, as was Rashee Rice. He was spotted out there working and honestly looked twitchy as ever, ready to go. The unfortunate thing for Rice is he may be playing, half the season at this point in time based on the length of suspension that he ends up getting. But at this point, it is what it is. Andy Reid was asked about the Rice situation, as well as the offseason as a whole, from players who have gotten in trouble in one way, shape, or form. Andy said they are keeping open communication with Rice and are simply letting the legal process play out. Same thing with Wanye Morris and Jason Goderick, who were just arrested in Kansas last week for having some very scary devil's lettuce in their possession. Andy said before they leave for the offseason, the coaching staff or somebody in the coaching staff lets all the players know they need to handle their business, i.e., don't do anything stupid, but sometimes things happen and then you got to work through that. The most important thing here in his eyes is that all the players learn from this stuff and that you end it. That's what he said. End it, meaning you do not repeat your mistakes or stupid decisions. So yeah, I think that's what they are looking for, most players learning from it all and not repeating these screw-ups, which is why it's probably for the best that that photographer that was involved in the alleged nightclub incident no longer wants to press charges against Rice and said it was all just a misunderstanding. Hopefully, the police and the state of Texas, who are reportedly still looking into the situation, decide it's a nothing burger as well, and nothing comes from it. Patrick Mahomes weighed in about the Rice situation as well, noting that many of Rice's teammates are trying to do whatever they can to teach him and help him learn from his mistakes. You want to be the best person you possibly can be for society. A great player on the field is awesome, but so is being a great person off the field. They all got to aim to be as smart as they can. He's talking about every teammate on the Chiefs as a whole being as smart as they can when they're not in the building, and then prove it by their actions as a team. Now, regarding Rashee Rice on the field for year 2, Andy said they want to give Rice a bigger role in the offense, working on things they felt were weak spots from him last season. Obviously, that's what you do with every player on the team. You take their strengths from last year and then expand on that, then work on the weaknesses, right? But with Rice specifically, he worked through drop issues early last year and is getting a better feel for space, especially as the season went on. Now, another player who was seen out there but not practicing was the rookie first-round pick and wide receiver Xavier Worthy. At first, I thought maybe he wasn't practicing because he is currently the only draft pick yet to sign his contract. Kingsley Suamataia, the offensive tackle out of BYU, signed his yesterday. So again, 6 of the 7 draft picks have signed, with Worthy being the only one who has not. However, Andy Reid said that Worthy tweaked his hamstring about a day and a half into OTAs, and that's why he wasn't out there practicing today. So while he was only out there for a day and a half, Andy said he got a nice introduction to things. He's a smart kid and comes from a good system, having done some things that they do in KC when he was in college. Big Red anticipates that Worthy is going to fit right in when that hamstring heals up, and Mahomes spoke on this as well, noting that it's more precautionary than anything else with Worthy, saying he could probably get out there if they needed him to. But since it's so early on, there's no need to force the issue. Safety Bryan Cook was also a guy seen out there working, which is really the first time we've seen him since his ankle injury last season. He did put out a recent training video on his Instagram, looking nice, moving quick, but the fact that he is indeed back at practice and looking great is a wonderful sight to see. I don't know if he was yet a full go, but they're probably going to continue to ramp him up, and just happy to see him be able to bounce back from such an ugly injury. Bryan Cook's teammate Trent McDuffie said it's exciting to have him back out there. They love to see a guy who gets to come back from an injury like that. This is year 3 for a lot of the guys back there in the secondary. They think less and play faster. McDuffie loves that aspect, being able to fly all around back there since they are much more familiar with the system. McDuffie is also more vocal now, one of the leaders in the secondary heading into year 3. His goal is to simply help set the standard and not let the guys dip below that. Snead lined up against opposing teams' best wideouts last year, and McDuffie said as a competitor, that's 100% something he wants to do. Getting to line up against the best each and every week is exactly why he's out here doing what he's doing. He then gave big props to second-year safety Chamari Connor. They got him playing everywhere back there in the secondary. Is a dude that's quiet but works hard and is only getting better. And yeah, Connor is definitely someone that I'm excited to see out there in action leading up to this season, as well as the newly drafted safety Jaden Hicks. I also want to point out that the Welshman Louis Rees-Zammit could be seen out there returning punts, and many eyes will remain on the former rugby star to see what becomes of him in the coming months. Another player out there at practice is one that has been in the spotlight recently, and that is the best kicker in the game, Harrison Butker. Andy Reid mentioned that he talks with Butker all the time, but didn't talk with him about his speech in particular because he didn't feel like he needed to. Everyone out there has different thoughts and perspectives on a variety of issues, different religions. They are from different areas as well as different races, but they all get along and respect each other. The great thing about America is everyone's allowed to have their voice, and when asked about women at the Chiefs workplace and what he would say to them if they had any concerns about what Butker said, Andy Reid honestly went full savage mode in his answer.
With so many women just on staff here and in the building, his comments kind of touched on women in the workforce. What do you tell them if they come to you with a concern about players speaking ill of, women in general?
Yeah, that hasn't happened. I don't think he was speaking ill to women, but he has his opinions, and we all respect that. I let you guys in this room, and you have a lot of opinions that I don't like. So.
Hey, I'm not gonna lie. When he said that live, I actually laughed out loud. You could tell Andy was done with the questions, with this being like the 3rd time he was asked some form of a question around Butker's speech. He definitely said his piece and let the media members know exactly what he thinks, which isn't always the case for him. Andy always speaks, I think, truthfully, but it's sometimes a bit more reserved. I don't know the right word, but I could just tell Andy Reid was being 100% truthful here in his answer, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Anyway, Andy also said this: the guys on the team understand that everyone has their own opinion, and he personally just didn't seem bothered by Butker's speech, and he also doesn't think it's going to affect the locker room in any negative way. Now, Patrick Mahomes, of course, was also asked about Butker's speech, and he said he knows Harrison well. In fact, he's known him for 7 years and therefore judges him by the character he shows every single day. And that's as a good person, someone who cares about the people around him, someone who cares about his family, and wants to make a good impact on society. They won't always see eye to eye, adding there's a diversity of opinions all throughout the locker room. There's a lot of different views on everything, and Mahomes personally didn't agree with everything in Butker's speech, but at the end of the day, they will all come together as a team, and he's not going to personally judge Butker for a difference of opinion in how they see things. Mahomes went on to say that a cool thing about the locker room is that it allows for an open space and players can have all kinds of discussions on a variety of topics, and you walk away from that to make an educated decision for yourself. Social media gets pretty divisive, but the locker room is a much better place for all the guys to have discussions about topics like that. At the end of the day, he respects Butker, knows him by his character that he's shown day in and day out, and that's what's important to him regarding Harrison Butker. Now stick with me here, but NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell had a press conference today as well. Wasn't at the Chiefs facility or anything like that, but he covered a variety of topics that included an eventual 18-game season down the road, talked about the 2026 NFL Draft being in Pittsburgh, and then even spoke about the Butker situation himself. He was asked about it, of course, but his response was something like this, quote, "We have over 3,000 players. We have executives around the league. We have diversity of opinion and thoughts, just like America does. That's something we treasure." He then basically said that's about all he feels the need to say about that in the situation. And you know, an answer like that triggered people who hated Butker's speech. But hey, again, that's the beauty of living in this country. People can speak their truth and convictions, and if you disagree with it, that's fine, but it's not going to stop people from sharing their beliefs. Anyway, back to practice. Patrick Mahomes weighed in on the newly drafted tight end Jared Wiley, saying he's quick down the field, faster than people think he is, and is excited to see him progress throughout the offseason and into the season. And speaking of quick, Hollywood Brown has been doing a nice job thus far, with him and Pat developing some nice chemistry out there, per the words of Andy Reid when asked about them. Mahomes added that something they did a great job of last year was pushing through the struggles, especially in the short and intermediate part of the field, but they want to get back to having the deep ball back in the offense as well. In fact, it's already something they've been emphasizing early during OTAs, and honestly, I love to hear that, especially when you consider the fact that Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy are both sub 4.340 guys and are solid route runners on top of that. Then this was pretty interesting. With the new kickoff rules, Andy Reid mentioned the team are still feeling things out. You can't yet have live contact, and even when you are allowed to have contact, it's not like you can go out there and hit each other full on. He basically said, regarding these kickoffs, you're not going to know how things go with that until the actual first kickoff of the season, which is more than likely preseason. You're going to be able to figure it out there and have a few games to tweak things. But still, that's a long while to go before they can truly figure things out regarding the new kickoff rules. Something else that made my eyebrows raise a bit, other than when Andy Reid roasted the media, was when Big Red said safety Justyn Reid could potentially be out there on kickoffs due to the fact that once a returner gets past that initial wall, there's not a lot past that other than the kicker. To be fair, he was specifically asked this question about Justyn Reid doing this. He didn't just bring it up randomly, but I still found it interesting. He said that it's a potential possibility. That's something I already touched on in a video. You can watch it up here. Talked about it a couple months ago, I believe. It makes sense though, because if that returner from the opposing team makes it past that initial wall, as Andy Reid said, would you rather have Harrison Butker, God bless him, out there as the last resort, or Justyn Reid? I'm just going to be honest, my money is on Justyn Reid to make that tackle, but maybe that's just me. Anyway, with all that being said, let me know your thoughts on today's practice, pressers, who was there, who wasn't there, Worthy's hamstring, all that. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?